Good evening. You're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Our big focus on NDTV this evening is the terror attack that has taken place in Jammu and Kashmir, in which 40 CRPF soldiers have been killed. There are fears that the number of fatal casualties could go up. This happened after a suicide attack by terrorists on the Jammu-Srinagar highway as a convoy of CRPF buses was coming into the Kashmir Valley, and near Pulwama, a truck or a van of some kind, a Scorpio actually, carrying 350 kilos of explosives rammed into one of those CRPF buses, completely shattering it. It's completely mangled, and that is where the maximum fatal casualties have taken place. Another CRPF bus right behind it was also damaged, and there are many CRPF soldiers from that bus who have been injured as well. As many as 2,500 CRPF troops were actually moving from Jammu to Srinagar on this highway when this happened. This highway, remember, has been closed for many days because of bad weather. It has just opened up yesterday, and that is why there was such a large movement of troops that was taking place. This is normally a very secure road. It is the national highway after all, but this is now confirmed to be the worst terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir on security forces ever. And just to give you a sense of what happened exactly on this day, we have here with us my colleague Vishnu Shom, who's here in the studio with us, who's going to take us through the sequence of events. My colleague Neeta Sharma is at the Home Ministry, where Rajnath Singh, the Home Minister, in fact, has announced he will be going to Srinagar tomorrow. And Nazir Masoodi, my colleague, is just near the spot where this happened today. Nazir, what is the latest from there?
Well, Nidhi, the casualties have now risen to over 40. 40 CRPF Jawans have lost life in this deadliest attack in last near 3 decades of militancy in Kashmir. And what is the most bizarre, nobody had an inkling that this attack is actually taking place and why it is taking place. 2 days back, Jaish-e-Mohammed had uploaded a video on social media showing that a blast in Afghanistan, and that threatening the same type of attack in Kashmir to inflict casualties on security forces. And hours before this attack could take place, there was a video from the Jaish militant Adil, and he released his video wherein he's saying he will carry out a Fidain attack, a suicide attack. Then he started driving a car laden with explosives and rammed that car into the CRPF convoy. On the bus, which was carrying about 40 CRPF men, and all of them in that bus died, and bus was completely destroyed, and several other vehicles were also badly damaged in this massive explosion.
Was that, we are being very careful with the kind of footage we're putting out of this attack tonight, because the pictures are actually truly horrific. You cannot put most of these on air. You cannot broadcast them or print them. The severity of this attack is really very horrific. The Prime Minister then tweeted this evening that the sacrifice of these soldiers is not going to go in vain. The Cabinet Committee on Security is going to be meeting here in Delhi tomorrow morning. As Nazir was mentioning, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Pakistan-based terror group, had already been making threats that it may do an attack like this, and in fact they have claimed responsibility for this particular attack as well. Vishnu, let me just go across to you on this. What are you hearing from from the armed forces, from the army, the paramilitary forces tonight? This is clearly deeply tragic. I mean, the worst attack on security forces ever in the valley.
Well, let me just quickly run through the sequence of events as we know it. This is what the CRPF has actually told us on the record. This it was a convoy of 78 vehicles with more than 2,500 soldiers on board. It had left Jammu at approximately 3:30 a.m. in the morning. The reason it was such a large convoy was possibly because of bad weather in the last couple of days, which prevented the movement of the convoys earlier on. So this was an extremely large convoy. And they'd reached about 20 kilometers short of Srinagar in Avantipura when there was a vehicle which actually came up to one of the buses. It was an SUV, and it detonated itself after, or it hit the bus, as a result of which there was a massive explosion in which dozens of soldiers lost their lives on the ground. One would imagine at that scene, given the number of vehicles of the CRPF convoy which were present, that there would have been a desperate effort to get the survivors onto these vehicles and to move them as soon as possible. They were moved to the Army's base hospital, is what we've been told. But very interestingly, while the numbers of the people who've lost their lives have come from the office of the Governor of Jammu and Kashmir, the CRPF itself has been relatively silent. While they've shared details of the attack, all of the details, they've said we do not want to reveal a death toll at this juncture, simply because we don't know from doctors what that death toll is going to be. And that's a very important statement, because it's important to remember that it's not just the people who died on the spot of the IED blast, it's also soldiers who survived the initial blast were taken to hospital, who may have perished as a result of their injuries. So that's what we know in terms of the sequence of events. But very importantly, the use of a so-called suicide vehicle, in this particular instance an SUV with perhaps more than 300 kilos of explosives on board, used to ram a bus, is something that's not very common in Kashmir. It happened in 2001 when there were more than 30 people who lost their lives in the state, the state secretariat, I believe. The attack on the assembly. But since then, we've not seen these suicide blasts on vehicles having this kind of an impact. Today
and that's
is truly
something,
a tragic day.
And that's something we do need to talk about, because it is alarming to see this kind of a tactic being used by terrorists after such a long time, and also the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the way that it's operating in the Kashmir Valley at the moment. But before we go to that, Neeta, if you could just bring us up to date from the Home Ministry. The Home Minister is now going to Srinagar tomorrow. What more can you tell us on his visit?
Nidhi, as we speak right now, also Special Secretary Internal Security along with Joint Secretary Kashmir Division are, compiling all the facts and all the figures from the state, because they have to brief the Home Minister before he leaves for Srinagar. The Home Secretary, who was in Thimphu, he had gone there for Home Secretary level talks. He has cancelled those talks and he's coming back. Tomorrow, he along with the Home Minister would be going to Pulwama. NIA forensic team is also going to go there in the morning. They are going to assist Jammu and Kashmir forensic team, because the magnitude of this blast was so huge that they need assistance. Other than this, the third update is the intelligence officials had briefed National Security Advisor, and National Security Advisor in turn briefed the Prime Minister of India about the sequence of events. As far as what Vishnu was saying, if I can just add to that, what our sources are telling us, that as far as this ROP was concerned, when an ROP is done, it was done early morning. After that, each individual, each chowki or each mobile kind of a thana is given a duty to keep an eye on a specific area. And in this case, this SUV, this Scorpio was parked for quite some time, and information was there that this convoy is coming, 2,500 Jawans are coming, and it rammed into it. So this is the kind of investigation the Home Ministry is now looking into it. Tutu Meme has already begun between MOD and MHA, because the task of road opening party in this area, lies with the army, and now questions are being asked why the officers who were deputed there were not all that alert. Nidhi?
Well, Neeta, thanks for that, and we will come back to you a little later as more information comes in on what the government's next strategy could be. Let's actually hear what the Home Minister said to the media just a little while ago on this.
कश्मीर में हमारे सीआरपीएफ के बहादुर जवानों पर जो आतंकवादी हमला हुआ है, वो पाकिस्तान स्थित और उनके द्वारा संरक्षित आतंकवादी संगठन जैश ए मोहम्मद ने किया है, जिसकी मैं और सारा देश भर्त्सना करता है। इस आतंकी हमले का समुचित जवाब देने के लिए सारा देश एकजुट है। हम अपनी जिम्मेदारियों को अच्छी तरह समझते हैं और देश की जनता को यह भरोसा देते हैं कि इस पर जो भी कार्रवाई करना आवश्यक है, उसे करने में हम कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ेंगे। सीआरपीएफ देश का एक बहादुर और अग्रणी सुरक्षा बल है। देश की सुरक्षा और संप्रभुता की रक्षा के लिए इस बल ने समय समय पर बहुत कुर्बानियां दी हैं। जम्मू और कश्मीर में शांति और व्यवस्था कायम रखने में इस बल के योगदान की जितनी भी प्रशंसा की जाए, वह कम है। आज कृतज्ञ भारत उन सभी वीर जवानों को जिन्होंने अपने प्राणों का बलिदान दिया है, उन्हें अपनी श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करता है तथा इस कठिन घड़ी में उनके परिवारों के साथ पूरी तरह खड़ा है। हम शांति और अमन को भंग करने वालों के नापाक मंसूबों को नाकाम करने के लिए पूरी तरह से दृढ़ संकल्पित हैं। हम देश को आश्वस्त करना चाहते हैं।
Well, at the moment, Jammu and Kashmir is under President's rule. Elections are due later this year. Just a little while earlier, Vishnu spoke to the Governor Satyapal Malik for his first reactions to what had happened.
Mr. Satyapal Malik, sir, your first thoughts at this terrible disaster?
My first thought is with the family of the bereaved, जो लोग हमारे मारे गए हैं उनके परिवारों के साथ है और उनकी आत्मा की शांति प्रदान करने की तरफ है। और सेकंड थॉट इज दैट यस वी विल, इसका हम पूरी मजबूती के साथ जवाब देंगे। जिन फोर्सेस ने ये किया है या जो फोर्सेस इस सब के पीछे हैं उनको बख्शा नहीं जाएगा और हम टेररिज्म का यहाँ नामो निशान मिटा देंगे। पिछले 4 महीने में एक भी लड़का नया भर्ती नहीं हुआ था, पत्थरबाजी रुक गई थी, चुनाव हुए थे, चिड़िया नहीं मरी थी, तो पूरा फ्रस्ट्रेशन था इन पाकिस्तान में। और यहाँ के जो टेररिस्ट सपोर्टेड लोग हैं उन्होंने जानबूझ के फिर इस हरकत को कराया है और हम इसका कड़ा जवाब देंगे।
मिस्टर Malik, how many soldiers have died, sir?
अब देखिए, मैं एग्जैक्ट नंबर मैं नहीं बता सकता, जो टीवी में आ रहा है उसी के आसपास कुछ है।
Mr. Malik, is it correct that more than 40 people, 40 soldiers have lost their lives?
एक मिनट होल्ड कर रहे हैं
जी।
बोलिए जी, क्या कह रहे हैं?
Mr. Malik, who is behind these attacks?
Naturally, Pakistan, nobody else.
Mr. Malik, is this the Jaish-e-Mohammed which is behind these attacks? Because in the last 1 year, the security forces and the government has claimed major successes against the Lashkar and the Jaish.
Yes, it's visible. उसी से फ्रस्ट्रेट होकर उन्होंने किया है और ये बिल्कुल वो पैटर्न है जो ये अफगानिस्तान में करते हैं।
Mr. Malik, can you confirm, sir, that there was a suicide bomber who was there on a vehicle, that this vehicle rammed into a bus?
This is true. मुझे यही बताया गया कि there was somebody inside the vehicle. Vehicle was full of explosives and he just hit the soldier's vehicle.
Governor Malik, how many people are injured in hospital? Can you give us an idea? What is their condition?
I don't have the exact number.
Is there a concern at this stage that a political blame game has started and that this needs to end, because this is a law and order situation, it's a humanitarian crisis, it's a security crisis?
ये उनको सोचना चाहिए जो हर वक्त टेररिस्ट की सपोर्ट में बोलते हैं, उनके घरों पे जाते हैं, टेररिस्ट मरता नहीं है उससे पहले उनके यहाँ शोक व्यक्त करने चले जाते हैं और आज वो सारे चुप हैं। उन लोगों को सोचना है, उन्होंने पिछले 15 दिन में यहाँ बहुत माहौल खराब किया था, ये उसी का नतीजा है।
Mr. Malik, what is going to happen now in as far as the movement of the CRPF is concerned? Are you going to change your security posture because of this suicide vehicle being used?
After 2-3 days, we'll have a big meeting of Army, CRP, BSF, police and everybody, and we'll have security review करेंगे और उसमें जो नतीजे निकलेंगे उसके मुताबिक नया SRP वो बनाएंगे SRP.
Mr. Malik, in the last 15 days, you said the atmosphere, the mahal had changed. How has it changed in the last 15 days?
In last 15 days, you just see the statement of the political leaders. They are talking of communalism. They are talking that we are playing with fire and what not.
Sir, intelligence-based security in Jammu and Kashmir is the basis of all security. Would you say that there was some sort of an intelligence concern over here, perhaps a failure at identifying this threat?
Intelligence failure was not there because inputs were there.
Yes.
But yes, some लापरवाही was there because इतना बड़ा गाड़ी में आप भर के चले आए और आपको कहीं चेक नहीं हुए हो, तो वो हमारी नाकामयाबी जरूर है.
Mr. Malik, do you believe that the strategy of security forces needs to change considering the threat of car bombs?
Yes, time to time it should be changed. As the threat goes, the security situation changes, security strategy changes.
Well, let me go straight across to General Bikram Singh, the former Chief of Army Staff, who joins us tonight from Chandigarh. General Singh, thank you for speaking to us today, sir. Your first thoughts on just how big this attack is.
Yes, Nidhi, I think it's one of the most dastardly attacks, in recent times. And let me at the very outset convey my condolences to the family and salute the martyrs. It's a big loss. But then, this was expected, if you ask me frankly, because in the last few months, there has been a very heavy attrition on the terrorists. I mean, if you see the last 10 days, there were 5, 3, 2 at various places, terrorists being neutralized. So they were under pressure, and it was a logical, conclusion. As far as I'm concerned, I always thought something is going to happen. And here is an incident which I would say has happened after a very, very long time, where a local terrorist has actuated the vehicle in which he was going, laden with the explosives, and killed the 42 of our brave soldiers. It's really sad. But yes, it is a turning point from the point of view of the tactics being employed. For a very long time, the terrorists had refrained from using IDs. There were one incident where IDs were used, but I think with this kind of modus operandi which they have adopted in today's incident, I suppose this is going to be something they're going to resort to in future, along with putting IDs which are static along the road from where the convoy is moving.
Well, sir, as you said, this is a turning point from the point of view of the techniques that are being used by terrorists. Now, the other important point here is that it was 350 kilograms of explosives. I mean, that is absolutely massive. And, for a local terrorist to get, explosives of that quantity is not very simple. I mean, this appears to have been something that may have been planned over a period of time, and obviously had a lot of support from across the border and elsewhere. How do you get 350 kgs of explosives then?
Obviously, it's a cause of concern. Nidhi, definitely, this has been actually brought in to the line of control or from the mainland. There are a large number of also these, activities that are going on in terms of construction of dams, roads, where these explosives are used at times, for road construction. For all you know, it may have been pilfered from there. That is one option, one way of having acquired these. The other is that in the past, urea has been used, other chemicals have been used to, make these IDs. So there is a local, resources that are available in the market which people pick up and use them and make these IDs. So it may not be entirely RDX or PK or any other explosive which has been used. It could have been used with urea and other chemicals to explode. But definitely there were a large number of shrapnels. As one could see, the bust, the way it was perforated. And it definitely is a cause of concern.
So just to also ask you, the fact that this also happened on what should be a very secure highway, the Jammu-Srinagar highway, is that something that's concerning you, as well? The fact that it has happened on this road?
Well, Nidhi, firstly, let me tell you, from Banihal, when you come northwards towards Srinagar, the actual belt from Kazipur coming up to, Anantnag, Bijbehara, Avantipur, these are the areas which have been actually traditionally ID prone. And terrorists have traditionally used IDs, ambushed, the military convoys on this patch. It will continue to happen because let me tell you, one company which is of about 100 people, I'm talking about the army, I don't know whether presently I was there as a sector commander and a co-commander. We had the military that arm which was actually undertaking the road opening. But then in between CRPF came. I really do not know who was doing it now. But generally, a company takes an area of about 3.5 kilometers, 3 kilometers. And it's a very, very strenuous activity. It is not easy. People in the morning, they go walk across, check every inch of ground. They use anti-ID equipment, surveillance equipment. They use the tracker dogs, ID dogs to sniff out if there's any ID that has been planted along the roadside. They look for telltale signs. And thereafter, they take positions along the road. So it is a time-consuming. It is also, I would say, resource-heavy activity. But what I can make out now is that it does, in a way, such incidents do tend to put the security forces on the defensive. So the troops, the sources that were being utilized for offensive operations against the terrorists will contract to sort of give security to this main artery, which is leading to certain.
So my final question tonight is, and I know there's a lot of warmongering happening across television networks in India tonight, and I don't want to get into that. But clearly, as the Prime Minister has indicated, there is going to be a response to this. My question to you, framed very carefully, is what could that possibly be? We tried surgical strikes after Uri. It clearly has not deterred Pakistan. It has not prevented terror attacks from taking place. So what could the response possibly be?
Nidhi, you're right. There are a large number of channels that are discussing various options, which I personally feel should actually refrain from. And I think you've been very pragmatic and prudent in this regard. I think that we shouldn't be doing it. But there are a large number of options which are short of war. Some channels are also talking this being an act of war. Well, for the political leadership to decide how they perceive this occurrence, but it is a dastardly attack, very rare, where we lost 42 brave soldiers. But options which are there, ranging from activities along the line of control to perhaps hitting the headquarters of Jaish-e-Mohammed. Masood Azhar's headquarters at Bhavalpur, to striking certain targets, their launch pads, their concentration, terrorist camps, training camps. These are some of the options. But then I would not like to go beyond this. There are a large number of options which have been evolved, which are very much there, and all three services are aware of it and what needs to be done, and they are prepared for the worst contingency. Should these be exercised, and should there be an escalation in the levels of violence along the line of control and the international border, the security forces are prepared for that. So the options are there. I won't let you talk about it due to security reasons. But let me tell you, definitely, given the fact that the Prime Minister has made a statement, some other cabinet ministers have made a statement, there will be something in the offing. It may not be immediate, because if you go right away, you would, it would spell disaster. You will have a large number of casualties. So therefore, you've got to wait and watch. You got to lull the adversary into complacency to let them, start thinking everything is fine and hunky-dory, and then you stop. So you will be looking for an opportune moment after some time, and looking for targets, also identifying targets where when you hit, it hurts the most. So these targets will be identified, and at an opportune moment, the offensive will be launched.
All right, General Bikram Singh, sir, thank you very much for speaking to us tonight on NDTV. And I'd like to go straight across to our panelists this evening. Colonel Ajay Shukla is with us. He, of course, served in Kashmir with the army during the peak of militancy. Actually, he's here with us. We have Mr. VPS Panwar, the former IG of the CRPF. Mr. Dilip Trivedi, the former DG of the CRPF, is also with us today, as is Ambassador KC Singh, who, as a diplomat, has dealt very closely with counter-terrorism and terrorism-related issues. Ambassador KC Singh, to you first. When we look at, firstly, the possible fallout of this diplomatically, do you see, perhaps some steps being taken in the next few days and weeks? And what could those possibly be? I mean, you have a Pakistani delegation coming here for the Kartarpur corridor on the 13th of March. Could that be a casualty? Would it be more? Do you think India would escalate this diplomatically in some other way? What do you think?
Well, we shouldn't allow Pakistan to link this to the Kartarpur corridor, although they may wish to. But I think straight away one thing that comes up is, because Jaish has taken credit for it and they put a video out. So there is straight away a case for re-exerting pressure on Pakistan to do something about Masood Azhar. We should take it up in Beijing. I think Chinese cannot hide now behind all kinds of excuses. They have to lift their veto on listing of Masood Azhar. We have the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia coming here within the next week or 10 days, and therefore have them now, be counted where the counting is necessary. They should openly speak up and put pressure on Pakistan, as we should ask Abu Dhabi to do it, because these are the three countries which have gone to the rescue of Pakistan when they couldn't go to IMF and required money and financial assistance, etc., etc. So that thing has to be ratcheted up straight away. But of course, Pakistan chosen a very clever moment when Afghanistan is again in balance. So which means US can only have limited pressure applied on them. We got elections coming up here, so they would have weighed that. And in the meanwhile, I think we should be very quick to find out what kind of an, I think General Bikram Singh put it very well, what kind of an explosive is it? Was there any assistance from outside? We know that there is moral and other assistance, but was there physical assistance? Did any of the explosives come across? So we need to keep building up that case, but in any case, the diplomatic thing you have to bring a ton of bricks on Pakistan's head straight away and see whether so-called friends who are otherwise very willing to stand by us, it's okay to send a couple of fugitives from Dubai, but are they willing to stand up and condemn when it comes to terrorism, which affects us directly, affects us security forces and a vital part of India.
Absolutely, and as you pointed out, apart from Pakistan, which of course is where Masood Azhar, the founder of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, lives, you have China that has been shielding him repeatedly at the United Nations, refusing to allow India to have him designated as a global terrorist, and that is another thorny issue in the India-China relationship that one has to look at. Before we talk more about about the options here, Ajay Shukla, let's look at the timing of this. Why at this point? What is the provocation now? Why do you think it was done now?
Actually, I'm of the view that there's a local dynamic to this, not so much
a Pakistan dynamic. Why do you say that?
This area where this attack took place, Goripura, Avantipur, Pulwama, Tral, these are areas, this one small pocket in South Kashmir is the area that has taken the maximum militant casualties in the last 1 year. Over 100 militants are believed to have been killed from this area alone in the last 6 months, and the need to reassert themselves and sort of send out the message that we are still alive and still kicking was absolutely overpowering. There have been intelligence reports coming in of attacks that are likely to take place in this area. In the lead up to Republic Day, there was an attack. There were intelligence reports that the Jaish is about to strike. Republic Day passed, and then they assumed that it was a sort of a past threat. But now it appears that this is what they were talking about. So I think that this is a very clear-cut, well-thought-out plan to reassert themselves, to let the locals know that militancy is not dead, to warn off sympathizers with or informants of the military forces. And I think, of course, Pakistan played along with it, but I think the primary dynamic was a local one.
I think that's very significant what you're saying, Ajay, and let's just get into that in some more detail. Let me though first get a first comment from Mr. Panwar here, who's been an IG with the CRPF. Sir, this is terrible, absolutely terrible what has happened today. And, one has to ask, I mean, here were these 2,500 soldiers traveling on the Jammu-Srinagar highway in one go, which honestly, on the face of it, doesn't sound like the smartest way to travel.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with you. It is not the smartest way of traveling, because they should have thought of that you are sending 78 vehicles in a convoy. They are always vulnerable to the terrorist attack. You should have thought of that. That is true. Secondly, why you have not taken care by giving them armored vehicles, and why not at all by air? Why they should travel 300 kilometers in the vehicles? You see, had it happened on the bank of a river, then what would have been the result? The result would have been very bad. At least it is in the plain area. You can evacuate the casualty also. There you will not even find the vehicle where it has gone, and it would go down the ditch some few hundred meters down in the river. So it is a very bad planning. It is not a good planning, and the government should take care of this. We have been writing about it. We have been telling them that why don't you give an aircraft? We tried that aircraft. In fact, travel by aircraft is much cheaper. When the situation is so bad, then the travel by aircraft is much cheaper. As the information is available with me, the IG from Srinagar has already sent a proposal to the directorate that please allow us to travel by air.
Well, we have Mr. Trivedi, Mr. Dilip Trivedi, the former DG of the CRPF, who's with us as well. And Mr. Trivedi, this is actually, I think, the worst attack on the CRPF since the Dantewada attack of 2010, in which 75 soldiers lost their lives. This is absolutely horrific.
Yes, Nidhi, I agree with you. It's absolutely horrific, and my condolences to the families of the deceased. But the fact remains that this is a new kind of a modus operandi used by these people for the first time. As far as I remember, no such human sitting in a vehicle laden with explosives has attacked a convoy so far. Normally the modus operandi would be to plant IEDs on the road and blow them up when the convoys are passing, or at times even fire on the convoy or throw grenades or some other explosives at them. This is the first time we've had a human bomber taking on a convoy in this manner. So I think that is where the security people got caught off guards, because all planning and everything is done keeping in mind the modus operandi of the militants. And the plan of convoys having road opening parties to detect IEDs, using sniffer dogs, metal detectors and everything to see that the IEDs are not effective, are definitely were working so far. Now, so the militants thought of improvising further and doing this kind of a thing. And so it's not taking away anything from the security forces. It's not as if they are to be blamed for this kind of a lapse. But the fact remains that now this whole incident has opened up a new dimension, and the whole SOPs and the entire planning for route movements and all will have to be redone in view of this kind of an attack. So this is a major challenge which the security forces will have to face immediately, apart from the trying to track down the killers and the people behind all this. So this is definitely a horrific attack. As far as my memory is there, I don't think we've had this kind of an
attack. I want to ask Ajay about that. You know, the use of this tactic of a vehicle, a suicide bomber in a car. Now, you hear about it in Afghanistan, and it seems to have literally been transported from there to Kashmir.
I think I would not read this just yet as a complete change in tactics, because the effort that goes into an attack like this, getting the explosives together from different sources, kitting up the car, finding a car, doing reconnaissance, doing rehearsals, all the radio chatter that goes on associated with this, this all gets picked up by the intelligence agencies. And the Jammu and Kashmir police, especially their Thana level intelligence, is absolutely superb. It's a mystery how they've missed out on this particular one. And I've spoken to people this evening in the Jammu and Kashmir police. They're saying we just don't understand how this slipped through the radar. So to believe that they'll be able to get away with an attack like this every time is, I think, giving too much to the militants. I think this is a one-off case where they've taken the element of surprise and unpreparedness to sort of slip through the radar. They've achieved, from their perspective, excellent results. But I don't think that this is something that will be happening on a regular basis.
So then let's talk about what the response, let's get back to that question of what the Indian response could be. Maybe I was asking Ambassador K.C. Singh about the diplomatic options. I asked General Bikram Singh whether, another surgical strike is an option again. I mean, obviously the one post Uri didn't exactly work, right? Here we are, So Ajay, what happens? I mean, what is it that India can afford to do without this sort of escalating beyond a point that begins to hurt our own people?
You see, the television channel warriors are all very eager for some kind of measures to be taken against Pakistan. When we went in for the surgical strikes, there was so much care taken that you only hurt Pakistan up to a point, and that too you hurt the terrorists and not the Pakistani army. Now the problem with that kind of approach is that you end up not causing enough pain to the other side to result in behavioral change. The behavior remains exactly the same. Infiltration, terrorism continues to be supported. You've issued the you've executed the surgical strike, but you've not achieved the results, which is to cause pain. If you do cause that pain by increasing the level of the strike, by making it on a wider frontage, by going deeper into Pakistan, by using heavier, all these options exist, as General Bikram Singh was saying, but they all invite retaliation.
And that is a risk too. You
can only control one side of the escalation dynamic. The escalation dynamic is a two-sided ladder, and there is no telling when you do sort of initiate something about how far it's going to go, because the other side gets to vote as well. So this is a very tricky question, and calibrating your response is one of the key challenges, the key strategic challenges in a case like this. I don't know if our government can do it.
Well, Ambassador Singh, Ajay also made the point earlier about, the local dynamic to this, the primary dynamic he thinks being that in South Kashmir, which is infested with militancy, these are terrorists trying to make the point that, we are still here, we have the capability to strike, even though they've had more than 100 fatal casualties in the last 6 months. Of course, the Pakistan dimension is there, in which case I come back to the point that diplomatically, what is it that India can actually do that would hurt Pakistan at this point? I mean, I'm not talking about going to the United Nations or something. There was a time, and we've done it before, when we have expelled, their High Commissioner, they've expelled ours. It didn't really help beyond a point, but it was an escalation. You think that this is a kind of an attack that requires that kind of a response?
You see, when you reduce the bilateral relationship to a very bare bones relationship, where the high commissions are functioning, there is no other engagement on the commercial side, people to people. There's nothing that you can yank back, which Pakistan wants, and you can withhold it, because you already reduced the relationship and said we will just have a basic bare bones relationship, and that's it, and we will not talk until you stop the terror. Now, what's happened with this is that if you don't reach out to the people in the valley, if there is no what is called hearts and minds approach, what is the lesson from counterterrorism with Pakistan and US in Afghanistan, US in Iraq? Counterterrorism has been going on for the last 10-15 years, and the experience which has been gained from that is that no approach, purely security approach, works, particularly when there's a neighboring state supporting it. So you have to first win over the people of the valley. Now, the government has been sacked, we are nowhere near it, so we adopted a complete security approach. So now you got a sullen valley, which is then straight away available to anybody on the other side of the border to exploit. There are young men, there are youth, and you say, no, we will just hunt them down. Now, the response to that is that they have taken it to the next level, and which means we'll have to now, 9/11 just happened once, but it changed air travel for all times to come. Now, whether we realize it or not, but all security protocols in Kashmir, in fact, all over India will get revised now, because this can happen to senior officers, this can happen within the city, this can happen to anyone literally, because this is what happened in Kabul, you remember, when we lost officers and Pakistan got it done against a mission. So once this suicide bombing in a vehicle starts, it becomes now a new game altogether. So I think whether we realize it or not, it's a new game now and a new challenge. And that is what the militant wanted to achieve. He wanted to tell you, you can bring all the forces you want, I will change the dynamic, and then you keep reacting to it. So we have to get out of this action-reaction cycle. But obviously this won't happen now till the elections are over in Delhi. But in any case,
but
diplomatically,
what
Saudi Arabia, Emirates, China.
No, what both you and Ajay Shukla are saying about having a dual approach, that, not just a military approach to this, and this is important. I want to ask Mr. Trivedi about that. Often the military, the paramilitary do go into situations like the one in the Kashmir Valley, looking at it purely from a security prism. But often this whole idea of reaching out and trying to deal with homegrown militancy, within has come from army commanders and other security chiefs as well, who said that it just can't be a military alone approach. Would you agree with that, Mr. Trivedi?
Definitely, I agree with that. It cannot be a military approach only. It cannot be a approach by force only. As the ambassador pointed out, that you have to wean away the youth from this militancy, rather than creating a situation where the youth gets more and more radicalized and moves more towards militancy, for which will be very easy for the other side to exploit. So we definitely need to change that set of mind. And also we need to re-examine the entire deployment in these areas, because the more security forces you pump in, the more amount of such casualties can happen, because the more amount of such people are moving on the roads, and the more such camps are available to be attacked. So one has to really think, that what is the rationale for pumping in so much of forces. And a time, yes, when militancy started, J&K police was a very small police force of say 8 to 10,000 people. Today it's a huge police force and very capable also, very well armed compared to what they were at that time when militancy began. So it is time we must start shifting and they have their own very good intelligence network and you can't beat the local police for local intelligence because they have roots with the people down at the very basic level. So it's time to shift a lot of burden back to the state police and tell them that okay, we are here, we are in the backup rather than be available all the time. One definitely is this is what we'll have to assess. Second, the security protocols will have to change because this is the first of its attack. You can't say this will be a one-off attack for all time to come. You'll have to cater for this in all your planning.
No, I mean you're absolutely right. In fact,
so,
Ajay,
this has to be really kept in mind. And
no, sorry, sir. You're absolutely right about the security protocol. And Ajay, that I mean, I think Ambassador KC Singh was also making that point. Now, if this is the tactic, it can be applied to any convoy. I mean, even of senior politicians, officers. Any convoy. This is pretty scary, and there has to be a new security protocol in place.
Without in any way disagreeing with either Mr. KC Singh or Dilip Trivedi, I'm only making the point that while we do have to factor it into our planning hereafter, I'm not sort of the view that you're suddenly going to see a rash of car bombings in Jammu and Kashmir or elsewhere. I would wait and watch and sort of assess that dynamic as it unfolds. But I think, yeah, I agree with them. You have to factor it into your planning for sure.
Mr. Pawar, just a quick last comment then. What would you like to see change? This attack is clearly a turning point one way or the other. What would you like to see change in terms of the security protocols?
I think the whole situation should be seen in totality. Whether you are deployed properly, whether you are being commanded properly, whether your policies are all right, it is not small thing. The dealing with terrorism is not the local policing. Policing is detection and prevention of crime. It is not detection or prevention of crime. It is much more than that. It is above that. So you have to see all through that wherever the loopholes are there, you have to plug them in. Say here in the CRPF, I can say with 37 years of my service, that the expertise of the CRPF officers is not just being used for this. You are being commanded by very junior officers. So your whole situation changes. Your thinking changes and your implication changes. How do you deal with the situations? You are not taking that interest which should come out from you. So you must see everything in totality and work it out afresh. How should we go about? Certainly there has been some drawback that this incident has happened. But I agree with Mr. Shukla that I also don't feel that this will be repeated thing that every time they will only use the ramming of vehicles into another vehicle. I also agree with that.
Well, my final question is to Ambassador KC Singh then again on the issue of diplomatic pressure, because Ambassador Singh, it doesn't work beyond a point. I mean, we've sat here on countless programs, covered countless stories. Look what happened after 26/11 with all the pressure of the entire world on Pakistan's head. That trial has gotten nowhere. Hafiz Saeed is a free man. China doesn't give a damn. It continues to use its veto power at the UN despite overwhelming evidence against Masood Azhar. So the point is, what can we do?
No, many things are happening. Chinese want your cooperation in RCEP, which is going to be signed. Chinese also would like you on their side with the Americans taking them on global. It's a different China. So we need to test them out and say this is a red line for us. And if they're not willing to observe it, that credit has been taken by them. These are the people who have done it. He is sitting in Pakistan. And then as I told you, there's the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia coming. Crown Prince of UAE is himself cooperating with us. Put pressure on these 3 points. That will work better than just US. And of course, US should come and also talk to them and say, you have to catch hold of this guy. You see, that is why they brought now Masood Azhar forward. But Lashkar-e-Taiba has been burnt since 26/11. So that's why they've been pushing Masood Azhar, because he is not listed. So he is allowed a little more freedom to operate openly. So we have to plug that loophole and see whether Pakistan can be made to catch hold of him, intern him, or do something about him.
Well, just on the question of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, Ajay, why are we suddenly seeing the Jaish-e-Mohammed back in the headlines the way it has been? I mean, there was a period of quiet. They did the parliament attack and they've done some pretty dastardly attacks in the Kashmir Valley, and but there was this period where they kind of disappeared, and you basically had the Lashkar front and center. What explains the Jaish's revival?
It's still too early to call it a revival. It's for now, let's call it a desperate attack to retain salience and relevance in South Kashmir. The fact is that this area where the attack took place is really a Hizbul Mujahideen area.
Yeah.
It's, Naiku's who's the operational commander over there. The Jaish and the Lashkar are really rumps over here. So I think this is a very interesting question. I'm waiting to see what the intelligence comes up with the solution to it. But I would only say that out of all the groups that one would have expected an attack from at this time, the Jaish is probably the last that I would have expected it from, and perhaps for that reason it is because of its sort of fading salience that the Jaish caused the attack.
All right. Well, thank you to all of you for joining us. It's an extremely tragic day today, and we will, of course, continue to watch this story very closely and the Government of India's response. Thank you very much to all of you. We'll take a break. We'll bring you more reactions to this developing story right after that. Welcome back. Well, we're staying with that big story from Jammu and Kashmir, the worst ever attack on security forces. 40 CRPF soldiers killed today after a suicide attacker in a car in a Scorpio drove into their convoy of buses on the Jammu-Srinagar highway, killing 40 of them, as I said, and carrying 350 kilos of explosives in that car. This is the first such car bomb attack, suicide attack that the Kashmir Valley has seen, certainly raising an alarm in the security establishment and the Government of India, where there will now be a recalibration of security protocols, clearly, particularly in the state of J&K. This is the big story we're tracking today. We continue to bring you reactions across the board, including first from Home Minister Rajnath Singh.
कश्मीर में हमारे सीआरपीएफ के बहादुर जवानों पर जो आतंकवादी हमला हुआ है, वो पाकिस्तान स्थित और उनके द्वारा संरक्षित आतंकवादी संगठन जैश ए मोहम्मद ने किया है, जिसकी मैं और सारा देश भर्त्सना करता है। इस आतंकी हमले का समुचित जवाब देने के लिए सारा देश एकजुट है। हम अपनी जिम्मेदारियों को अच्छी तरह समझते हैं और देश की जनता को यह भरोसा देते हैं कि इस पर जो भी कार्रवाई करना आवश्यक है, उसे करने में हम कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ेंगे। सीआरपीएफ देश का एक बहादुर और अग्रणी सुरक्षा बल है। देश की सुरक्षा और संप्रभुता की रक्षा के लिए इस बल ने समय समय पर बहुत कुर्बानियां दी हैं। जम्मू और कश्मीर में शांति और व्यवस्था कायम रखने में इस बल के योगदान की जितनी भी प्रशंसा की जाए वह कम है। आज कृतज्ञ भारत उन सभी वीर जवानों को जिन्होंने अपने प्राणों का बलिदान दिया है, उन्हें अपनी श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करता है तथा इस कठिन घड़ी में उनके परिवारों के साथ पूरी तरह खड़ा है। हम शांति और अमन को भंग करने वालों के नापाक मंसूबों को नाकाम करने के लिए पूरी तरह से दृढ़ संकल्पित हैं। हम देश को आश्वस्त करना चाहते हैं।
And in fact, Priyanka Gandhi was supposed to address her first press conference this evening in Lucknow. She decided to call that off, instead giving this statement on this attack to the media.
पुलवामा में जो आतंकवादी हमला हुआ है, जिसमें हमारे जवान शहीद हुए हैं, इसकी वजह से हम ये अनुचित समझते हैं कि हम अभी राजनीतिक चर्चा करें। मैं आप सबसे आग्रह करूंगी और रामलाल राही जी से, अवतार सिंह भडाना जी से, जो हमारी पार्टी में आज शामिल होने के लिए यहाँ आए हैं, आप सबसे आग्रह करूंगी कि 2 मिनट की श्रद्धांजलि हम ऑब्जर्व करें शहीद जवानों के लिए। और मैं उनके परिवारों को कहना चाहती हूँ कि इस दुखद घड़ी में एक एक देशवासी आपके साथ है। हम सबको बहुत दुख हुआ है। आप हौसला बनाए रखें। आपके साथ कंधे से कंधे मिलाकर हम खड़े हैं।
And in fact, Rahul Gandhi, who was supposed to be hosting envoys of G20 countries for lunch tomorrow, has cancelled that now. A statement coming in from Anand Sharma, senior Congress leader, saying that condemning the dastardly terror attack and the tragic killing of our Jawans, the lunch with these envoys to meet Rahul Gandhi has been cancelled as a mark of respect to their martyrdom. So, as we said, this is the big story we'll continue to track. There may be a series of meetings tomorrow here in Delhi within the government. Home Minister Rajnath Singh is flying to Srinagar to take stock of the situation. Let us see what emerges from that. See you again tomorrow.